everybody, welcome to Meteorology Lab. There's just one little thing I need to load before we can continue. Give me just a second here. That's just a little look at the subtropical cirrus coming in from the west there, and just about ready here. Okay, very good. Okay, I think we're ready to start here. Anyway, we've got the big lee side low there in Colorado. You can see the isobars painting 992 millibars just south of Lyman towards Eads down to Pueblo. And that's due to those pressure falls in that region, and in response, southerly winds coming in from Texas and Oklahoma feeding up into that low. If we put up the surface observations, let's do that real quick. You can see that there's some pretty strong upslope flow around the Denver area out to western Nebraska and just north of I-70 out in that region. If we had a little bit more moisture, that would be a good setup for severe thunderstorms. But even without the moisture, we've got some pretty good high base storms developing north of Denver towards Cheyenne, and we can probably pick out a bit of a warm front, perhaps running something like this. So that might be one boundary we would consider during the spring months. And it does look like there's a little bit of a dry line trying to come together in this area. It's a very weak one, but we can see the 40s dew points out around Pratt and Alva contrasting with the 20s further out towards Guyman and Garden City. So things are very slowly starting to come together. Of course, up in the Midwest area, plenty of cold air, 40s and 30s trying to feed into that system, but down to the south, we've got the dew points starting to come up down in Texas, some 50s showing up in the I-35 corridor. Let's see how the Cape is shaping up. Pretty weak. Although in the Denver area I can see some values from 100 to 250, pretty much north of Colorado Springs up to Denver. So the lift is starting to spread in and affecting that area at this time. And putting it all together on the surface map, this is showing that very deep low there in Colorado. Looks like the cold front is starting to come out of the Rockies, stretching down through Tucumcari down to El Paso, and about to emerge into Texas. So that'll be our next big change coming up. Further out to the north, like I mentioned, the cold air is coming down. 20s and 30s up there in Minnesota and the Dakotas. And then looking out east, that area in this region under the influence of the Hudson Bay High, driving this cold front down to Virginia and Kentucky, and down in the southeast U.S., things look pretty quiet. Big old 10-20 millibar high covering Florida there. So due to the fact we've got that high pressure over Florida and not over the northeast, that's actually helping us tap a deeper tropical flow because the pressure gradient gets pushed even further south. So you can see coming up into Texas, we've got the flow coming from the northwestern Caribbean. So if that high pressure stays in place, we'll probably start bringing up 60s into Texas over the next couple of days. And then putting it together with the thickness and isobar chart. There we go. The remains of that old nor'easter up there in Labrador and far eastern Quebec. So the front kind of curving around that side right there. This is probably an occlusion. And then way out here we would find the warm front. Here's that high pressure which kind of drives the gradient further south that we talked about there. Up to the north, this is the polar high coming in out of the Hudson Bay region. And then out in the Colorado area, we've got the Pacific front now emerging from New Mexico, maybe a little bit further west, sort of in that area right there. So this is what's coming out into the plains, and behind that looks like a very turbulent and stormy area there in Oregon near that upper level low. So we'll bring out the satellite and check that out. We'll look at the water vapor imagery. And this is showing the subtropical jet flowing up from Kansas into Texas, or from Mexico into Texas, and then further north. Doesn't show very well, but I think somewhere in here is likely the polar front jet associated with that system out west. Okay, let me take a look at chat, see how things are looking. Zero drop frames. The microphone looks good. And let's see, we've got Electric Dog here, the first one on. Mike Estwick is here, and Jeff Krob, Fun with Tech. Sue M. Adam Davis. Shirley Kista's here. Alexi Pinkson Walsh. Storm Spotter Apex monitoring the potential for severe weather potential in North Texas on Sunday. Yeah, we're definitely looking at Sunday for possibility of storms along Interstate 35 in Texas and the Red River area, eastward towards Texarkana, Shreveport, and Lufkin. Adam Davis there, recovering from oral surgery. Good luck with that. I know that's definitely a handful there. Carl Berghoff, and let's see, Ron Chalfant. Oh, Ron Chalfant, 2¼ inches rain in Southern California. So, slowly pulling out of that drought weather there. Very, very wise Wolfie is here. And Erica Baker reporting mostly clear with light mid to upper 70s in her area. Mentioning that red flag warning in Kansas. And Mike Estwick reporting stray shower in Denver, 54 degrees there. And he is on the train coming home from work. And hello to Thomas Copeland there. Okay, so our system is pulling out of the Rockies and merging out into the high plains. And we'll take a look at that on infrared. So this is a slightly different wavelength. And there it is. Lots of mostly elevated convection up there in northern Colorado and southern Wyoming. Pretty much all this area here is the upper level low, so it's a very unstable region. Maybe we can take a look at a sounding in that area. I'll bring up Denver. So that's going to be the current Denver sounding, and we see the inverted V. See that right there? That's typically a pattern we see later in the spring, especially in May and June in Denver, but we're seeing it kind of early. And we call that an inverted V because there's a high relative humidity, good separation between moisture and dew point. But as we go aloft into the mid-levels, we have a very high relative humidity. So those two lines are very close together. And when we have that, we are looking at the potential for evaporative cooling, virga, downbursts, and that kind of thing. So I'm not too sure what's happened there this evening. Haven't looked at all the reports, but there is that potential with this kind of SKU-T here. All you would need is a little bit of heating or a little bit more lapse rate aloft to really squeeze that out. Let's go out to Salt Lake City. And again, steep lapse rate, pretty much moist adiabatic there. So the smallest amount of moisture and heating will produce showers in that type of air mass there. And then we'll take a look at it sounding further out west or further out east. We'll try Little Rock. We know that they're going to be in the warm sector. And we see that they've got winds out of the southwest, very light in the low levels, so they're probably just west of that ridge. And plenty of dry air all up and down the column, so they have not seen the moisture infiltrate that area just yet. But at Del Rio, there's the sounding there. We can see that the moisture is right around 50 degrees all the way up to about 5,000 feet. And then Corpus Christi, a lot more moisture for sure there. Mixing ratio 10 to 14 grams per kilogram, so that's going to correlate to upper 50s and low 60s dew points, and there's some pretty good depth with that there. Looks like about 6,000 to 7,000 feet deep there. And here's the cap, so that's starting to make an appearance there, and I'm sure we're going to see more of that this weekend. All right, we'll take a look at the upper level pattern here. You can see that very strong troughing there in the Rockies and the Great Basin area. That's got a negative tilt to that. And we can see that this first wave emerges out into the Four Corners area this evening and then works up towards Kansas tomorrow morning. So we should see the system progress rapidly east, typically between the trough and the downstream ridge. That's where we find the front. So probably at this time, this is Friday afternoon, we're going to see the cold front at the surface looking something like that right there. So moving through Missouri, coming up on St. Louis and Paducah, passing Memphis there, and then the cold front portion moving into the I-30 area. So that's going to be the first wave, and that'll move quickly to the east, and then we have more troughing out to the west. So it looks like ridging on Saturday and Sunday in the plains, but that starts breaking down on Sunday, and you can see the strong troughing moving in towards West Texas during the day on Sunday. And then at peak heating, 0Z, GFS is showing a pretty good trough right there, Childress down to Abilene. And ahead of it looks like kind of a large area of lift. So we should see the lapse rates increasing quite a bit, the instability also increasing, especially along the Red River. Up to the north, I think the moisture may be kind of limited. So this is kind of pointing towards the I-30 area and the Red River region for Sunday. Things will move eastward, and then for Monday, there's that low opening up a little bit there, passing Memphis. Strongest lift looks to be in Tennessee, Alabama, northern Georgia, and parts of Kentucky there. Looks like more troughing coming in the backside right there. So we'll have to keep an eye on Monday night there in Texas as that wave moves through. Then the ridging builds in for midweek, very strong ridging. And it looks like that will break down in Texas on the weekend once again. System coming on shore there Thursday and Friday there in California. And looks like a kind of a similar progression there for the weekend. Looks like this main trough comes in for Monday in Texas. A couple more troughs approaching from the west. There's one right there. Here's another. So we'll just have to wait and see how much moisture is in the area. If dew points are in the 50s and 60s, that could certainly support widespread thunderstorms. If the dew points are in the 20s and 30s, then we're not really going to get that. So we'll just have to see how those details shape up later. And at the very end, 31st, GFS going for a very deep trough coming into Texas at that time. Okay, well, this is just going to be a short one, and let me get all my windows sorted out here. I think we'll have a lot more to look at tomorrow, so we'll be back and check that out. Anyway, I hope you all have a good evening. Let me get that music queued up there. And there we go. All right. One last look at chat here. Ryan reporting flights from the northeast, opening up, trying to balance out from the canceled snowstorm delays. Jason Boggs reporting 2 or 3 wildfires there in the Texas Panhandle, one of them 1,000 acres. All right. Anyway, I hope you have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Take care, and have a good one.